everybody and welcome to Flock.Talk. As you can tell, we're not in the birds room today, and that would be because today's video is not about the birds. I'm going to be introducing you guys to the rest of the flock here and kind of the rest of our crazy zoo, and answer some questions that I got on different social medias about living in households with multiple species and how to kind of deal with predator-prey relationships, how we manage our time to make sure that everyone's getting proper enrichment, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. So this little girl beside me here is Yoshi. She is a mini Australian Shepherd. Technically she's a mini American Shepherd. Mini Aussies aren't actually a specified breed as far as I'm aware. But she is what she is. She's super cute. Everybody loves her. She is a bit of a scaredy pup. She used to be very, very afraid of the environment when we first got her. Thank you for your head. She wasn't familiar with living in a city, so she really struggled with kind of learning that people weren't so scary. We couldn't take her for walks really because people walking towards her caused a lot of fear-based reactivity. So she's had to go through a lot of training, a lot of systematic desensitization, a lot of counter conditioning to teach her that environments and people and dogs and city life isn't as scary as she thinks it is, and she's come a very, very long way. So Yoshi, she's only one. She's one in a couple months now, and she, as I said, is a little fear reactive. She's doing really good with people now. She'll willingly walk up to people. She doesn't really like being pet, but that's okay. She doesn't need to be touched by everyone. I don't like being touched by everyone. No reason why she would have to be. And she's also a little fear reactive towards dogs. Now that has come a very long way as well. She used to growl, bark, snarl, you name it, at dogs that are completely on the other side of a field, completely on the other side of a street. But now we can walk her right past a dog on the same sidewalk, absolutely no problems. She is still going to classes to learn how to interact with a variety of different dogs, kind of trying to teach her how to play and teach her that the world isn't so scary and that dogs are going to be rambunctious, you might get slapped in the face with a paw, and kind of helping her just build that confidence and learn that if you do get slapped in the face with a paw, it is okay, you can recoup yourself, you can back up, give yourself 20 minutes to kind of get your bearings straight, build that confidence back up, and go back out there. She's been doing really, really good. The last time I went to pick her up from classes, she actually was playing around with a golden retriever and a cavapoo. So she has been doing great. She's been making some really good strides and making all sorts of puppy friends, which we're really proud of her for. Yes, my dear. Yoshi is an incredibly smart little girl, which makes sense. She is a herding breed, although she is awfully tiny. She's just basically a very tiny version of a herding breed, so you still have all that energy, all of that absolutely nuts focus and intense need to learn and to do things. You know, she doesn't really like not doing anything. So keeping her well trained, giving her a lot of things to do to keep her focused, to keep her mentally exhausted, is something we focus on a lot with her. She is a very good girl. Yeah, you are. And she's a super, super quick learner, so absolutely no doubts that she's going to end up being a pretty good sociable dog once she gets through all of this fear reactivity and kind of starts learning that things aren't so scary anymore. She's already come a long way in just the 6 months that we've had her, so I don't doubt that she's going to absolutely take on the world with strides. This handsome guy here is Fonz. Fonz is a domestic long-haired cat. He's kind of a weird guy. When we first got him, he mostly actually had like gray cheeks and seemed to be mostly black, but as he's kind of aging and growing up, his fur is actually turning more brown than it is black, and his undercoat is actually like a gray or a white underneath, which has been an interesting development for him. Fonz was rescued from a house fire. Basically what had happened was the house caught on fire, and when authorities went in to put out the fire and, you know, to take care of things, they actually found out that it was a hoarding house that had way too many cats in it. So Fonz was rescued from that situation and put, I'm just gonna take it, thank you. Fonz was rescued from that and put into a shelter where we ended up finding him, and now he lives with us. And yeah, he's a good boy. He's very sweet, very cuddly. He is an absolute purr monster. He's a good guy. He's a good cat. Sheds like all heck, so he has to be brushed extremely frequently. He gets brushed probably almost every other day at this point because he's just shedding out the wazoo, and we gotta prevent him from having hairballs and stuff like that. He's a really good guy. He's got no issues getting his nails cut. He's got no issues being absolutely manhandled and having anything else go on with him. He is harness trained already, however he can't really go outside because it is freezing cold still, but it looks like we're going to be heading into warmer temperatures in the next little bit here, so he might be able to start going outside on his harness and trying to see a bit more of the environment that way. Yeah, and as you can see going on behind me here, there is a massive fish tank. There's not a whole lot going on in there right now. There is a pleco and a group of loaches. The reason for that being is that actually my significant's father passed away, and we inherited his fish, which was the pleco. We never really had intentions of getting a tank this size. However, when we inherited the pleco, he was in a pretty small tank and we had to put him into something a bit more suitable for how big he's going to get. We'll probably add more fish to it later, but we're just kind of letting everything settle in. We're working on getting it a bit more planted so everyone's got more places to hide, and we're kind of going from there. So the first question I'm going to answer is by Don Red Fox, and it's how do you manage all the different animals living together in one house? And obviously it is very difficult, and a lot of planning and a lot of thought had to go into this before we considered getting more animals, let alone a very predatory animal such as a cat and a herding breed like a dog like Yoshi, when it comes to already having a prey species in the house. Now, a lot of our preventative measures come from training and come from time management. Somewhat thankfully, Newt actually gets stressed out if you give him too much out of cage time. He likes an extremely consistent schedule, so if I have to work 8 hours a day, he would get, you know, an hour, hour and a half in the morning and an hour, hour and a half in the evening. If I have a day off and suddenly have him out of the cage for the entire day, it actually overwhelms him, it stresses him out, the change in schedule really throws him off, and he starts plucking his feathers. So with that, it means that Newt strives on a more consistent schedule. So even on the days that I have off, there's still an 8-hour period that I can't be interacting with him. If I am, it stresses him out, and he's going to rip his feathers out. So that kind of leaves my free days and days off to be kind of entirely dedicated to the mammals, to Yoshi, to fawns, and giving them a lot of enrichment. In terms of safety and things like that, like our regular schedule and communication in this house is very much built around making sure that the birds are safe and making sure that everyone is getting the care that they need. What this means is that nobody opens a door in this house, nobody lets out a mammal from their kennel or their room, or the birds from their room without like 100% certainty that everyone is secured. So what that means is that when it's the time for the birds to come out of the room, Yoshi goes into her kennel, Fawns goes into our bedroom where we have a bunch of enrichment and scratching posts and things on the walls for him to jump off of, and those animals go to their zones where they can have some alone time, they can have some decompression time, and the birds get to have their out time and they get to do some training, get to socialize, get to come out to the rest of the house. So a lot of kind of keeping them safe is just dependent on our schedules and our ability to communicate with one another and say, yes, all the animals are away, or no, I'm still trying to find Fawns because he managed to vanish or is running away. And things like that. So it comes down to having a lot of very strict communication and making sure that everyone in the house is very aware of the rules. The bird's door cannot be opened if the cat is out, if the dog is out, or if I've got the lid open on the fish tank and I'm cleaning it. You just gotta be really safe with those precautions. In terms of training and things that we did in order to manage the household, it's a lot of work, and Fawns is still in the middle of learning everything. So what I mean by that is that Fawns is still figuring out how to control his prey drive. Now, Fawns is a cat. Fawns is an extremely predatory cat. So he would sit outside the bird room door, listen to their noises, and present a lot of predatory behaviors. You know, his ears would perk up, his eyes might widen, his tail will start swishing, showing that he's thinking about hunting and pouncing and, you know, trying to hurt them. So when it comes to that, the sort of things we have to teach him are that birds outside, absolutely, you can watch those birds through the window, you can present those natural predatory behaviors to the animals outside. However, we have to set boundaries inside so he kind of knows the difference. And this is very difficult for his brain to figure out because it is embedded in his system. You know, all of his genetics, all of his history, everything that he is to hunt and kill prey. So when it comes to teaching him those things inside a house, it's a very slow going process. Right now, he's just trying to learn that if he hears noises coming from the bird's room, if he smells the birds, if there's a feather kind of near their room, to ignore it. So we're trying to reinforce him doing other things, presenting predatory behavior with his wands, with his toys, with watching the windows, in trying to keep him in a state where he knows going near the room and near the birds and near those sounds, near those smells is not appropriate, and presenting those behaviors towards toys and other things that we say are okay are things that he's allowed to do and things that he can easily still present those behaviors. The reason why we want him to be doing that is because you can't just tell a predatory animal not to be predatory. Unfortunately, it is very much part of the system, and it would just kind of be not necessarily cruel, but it wouldn't really be fair to get a predatory animal and then say that they aren't allowed to present any degree of predatory behavior, because you're just taking what they are genetically and then refusing them access to being able to present behaviors the way they naturally are. It would be like getting a bird and saying you're not allowed to forage, you're not allowed to make noise, you're not allowed to fly, and taking all of those natural behaviors that give them a lot of enrichment and completely taking them away. So Yoshi picked up on this stuff really quickly, and that happens just to be because she's not a very prey-driven dog, which is a little surprising because she does have the genetic history of a herding breed. This has worked out really well for us though, because teaching her to stay away from the bird room, to ignore the sounds of the birds, to present calm behaviors in the presence of the birds went very, very smoothly. She picked up on it very quickly. So how we go through teaching things like that, and I'm just going to do like a quick brief thing here. If you guys want it, I might do a whole separate video on it because it is a very lengthy process that involves a lot of very intense focus in terms of reading animal body language. So with Yoshi, the sorts of things that we did to teach her that the birds were a no-go zone and that the presence of the birds you had to present calm behavior. So what we did initially was the birds are in their room, Yoshi is out here doing whatever, and anytime she hears a noise from the room, you call her away from it and you give her something else to do. And she starts connecting, oh, I hear that noise, I need to be over here doing this, or I hear that noise, I need to go to my kennel, or whatever. And this kind of changes the brain, so instead of going, oh, I hear that noise, I need to go see what it is, it's, I hear that noise, this is the behavior I'm supposed to present. You also reinforce any sort of calmness. Anytime she hears a noise and decides to ignore it, you reinforce stuff like that. So she starts to learn that ignoring the birds is more rewarding than going towards the room, trying to investigate that noise, and potentially ending up hurting somebody. There's many different routes to take with this, and all of them are very dependent on the dog that you have and their prey drives and things like that. Where I moved from that was I actually had Yoshi outside with my significant, and I was inside with the birds. And what this did was allow Yoshi to see them from a distance. She could be far off in the back of the yard, she could see them, she could hear them, but there's that solid barrier of the glass door in between them. So if she suddenly decided that she was going to have a strong prey drive for some reason, there's no physical way that they could hurt one another, there's no physical way that they could get stuck or, you know, cause themselves too much undue stress. You kind of keep going with that until there's no more fear responses, there's no more stress, there's no more prey drive, and you can get them at closer distances so the birds are up against the glass and the dog is up against the glass. Now you may wonder, if they're never going to see each other, they're always going to stay separated, why would you bother really introducing them to one another through these barriers? And the reason for that is that accidents happen, and I personally prefer to be prepared in case those accidents happen. So for sure, I could just keep the birds in their room, I could just keep Yoshi in her kennel, and have them never see each other ever in their lifetimes. However, it is entirely possible that one day Yoshi might not have a fully locked kennel door and be able to accidentally walk out of it. There might be a communication error where Yoshi's kennel door isn't totally closed and then the bird flies out of the room and then they're both out, they're both loose. Any number of accidents can happen, and it's important for me to be prepared for those things. Because although I'd love to say I have 100% confidence in my capacity to keep them separated for their entire lives, there's no guarantee that an accident won't happen, that an emergency won't arise. So it makes the most sense for me to prepare for those. So by doing these, I'm allowing them to see each other without them having any physical way to actually reach one another. Yoshi can't accidentally scratch or bite them, she can't jump and accidentally slap them, she can't try and play with them, and the birds can't fly and accidentally slip through the bars of her kennel, they can't accidentally land on her or bite her or do anything that could cause harm or fear or stress or accidental death to one another. As mammals, ourselves included, but cats and dogs produce it in a lot higher quantities, is gram-negative bacteria. And it's basically just present in your saliva, and dogs and cats groom themselves, they lick their paws, they lick their coats, and that bacteria spreads all over them. Now if the bird were to land on them, groom the hair, or just spend too much time on there, or land on there and then preen their feet, they can get that bacteria into their systems, and they can process a little amount of it, but too much of it can actually cause them to become quite sick. So personally, I don't want to put either animal in a situation where that amount of contact could occur. It just, the benefits don't outweigh the risks to me. Trying to weigh benefits and risks. Now, there's a lot of situations where you could just say, oh, I trust my dog, I know she's calm, I know she's not going to react to the birds being there, and therefore it should be totally fine and safe for me to just let them all out. Sure, I'm glad you have that much faith in your animals. I absolutely could, like, if I really wanted to, I could let the birds out right now and put him away. But everyone else would probably be fine. However, that's not a decision I'm going to make. And the reason for that is just, for me, the risks don't outweigh the benefits. Realistically, I don't see a benefit in my prey species bird and my predator species dog being in the same room. No matter how much kind of training you do, it's always kind of in the back of their brains that it's a predator, and they know it is. And it's something that could hurt them, it's something that could eat them, and it's ingrained in their brains to respond accordingly and know this is a predator, I need to run, or this is a predator, I'm stressed out. It's just a lot of unnecessary stress, it's a lot of unnecessary risk. Really, I can't really see benefits of them interacting with one another. Just the amount of risk involved with the predator and prey being out in the exact same room at the exact same time, unrestrained, is, it's so risky, it's so dangerous. So I personally, for the safety of my animals, I do not want them able to interact with each other and be in a position where they can hurt one another. So I had an anonymous question a little bit ago asking me to kind of show off the aquarium, what's in there, and asking if the birds show any interest in it. And they do. Newt in particular is very interested in the fish tank. However, this is another situation where it's not necessarily safe for him to be interested in the fish tank. So the things we kind of had to do is we do let Newt sit on a suction cup perch or on the back of the couch here and watch the tank, provided that the fish are not stressed out. So far the fish have been fine. The loaches honestly just like messing with him, and they'll kind of come over and check him out just as much as he checks them out. As long as both of them aren't stressed out and nobody's feeling threatened, I don't really have an issue with letting them see one another. However, if every time Newt were to go towards the tank the fish would all scatter or the fish would get really defensive and aggressive, then I'd have to start telling Newt that he can't go over there. However, there are some rules and stipulations with him going near the tank, and that is that he cannot land on top of it. Unfortunately, with the layout of the house behind me here, when Newt flies out of his room and is looking for a safe place to land, he wants to be somewhere high, and he wants to be in kind of a direct route. So he'll leave his room, fly straight, and see that the tallest thing back here is the fish tank, and he'll land on it. And I would love to say that that's fine, however, he could potentially contaminate the tank, or he could accidentally burn himself on a light or bite through an electrical cord. So the rule is that he can land up there for safety, but then as soon as I say off, he has to fly off and land on the back of the couch. And I've got a video clip it somewhere, if I find it, of him doing that exact behavior, and that's okay for me personally. I don't mind if he lands there for 2 seconds to feel safe and then jumps off when I ask him to. So yeah, the birds do quite enjoy watching the fish tank. Mia not so much. Occasionally she'll sit on the back here and kind of watch them. But I imagine once we start adding more kind of middle or high ground fish in there, it'll end up being a little bit different, and Mia might actually be a little bit more interested. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So will you ever make a video about Yoshi on your channel? Now, I unintentionally lied when I answered this the first time, and I said no, I don't really plan on it because there are a lot of videos out there already on dog training and taking care of dogs and cat training and cat enrichment, and I just find it's a lot harder to find good information on birds, so I would rather keep this channel completely bird. However, I'm not opposed to the idea of taking Yoshi for a walk and having the birds in a carrier and doing more like follow me around sort of videos. Again, because those were kind of fun to do and I enjoyed kind of getting them out and stuff. And it would just kind of be a random compilation of us taking for a walk, you know, throwing a disc for Yoshi and the birds sitting in a field or whatever in their carriers or harnesses and doing things like that. If you guys want to see that content, let me know, but really for the most part, everything here is still going to be bird training, bird enrichment, and stuff like that. And the last question I've got for the day is, as being a multi-species pet parent, who do you think are easier to communicate with? I have a Pom and a Conure, and I feel my dog understands every word I say, but my bird has more retention power. He holds grudges. It's so funny. So, I don't really find either of them easier to communicate with per se. They just all have different ways that they require to be communicated with. Now, being that dogs and cats are domesticated animals, they have a bit more drive to do kind of what people want, because like Yoshi, for example, she's a herding breed. Her breed was created in order to kind of serve people in a sense and do a task for people. So she has a lot more of a higher drive to do what she's told. She's a lot more attentive in that manner, where she's always kind of listening to what you're saying and wanting to figure out what you want. When it comes to birds, in that sense, they are not domesticated. They don't really have a need to interact with you if you don't give them a reason to want to. However, if you have a good understanding of reinforcement and how to create that motivation to work and that motivation to learn, both can be just as easily trained. Honestly, both of them pick up on things at a really quick pace. Yoshi tends to pick up on the concepts in about 5 minutes, and then it's like 3 or 4 sessions of kind of getting proper positioning or making it a bit more precise. She's also more likely to get quickly frustrated if I don't reinforce fast enough. I find that if I'm asking her for something new and I'm just not being clear on what I want, she is very quick to going into presenting any random behavior she thinks will earn the reward. Whereas the birds, I find, are more likely to continue to try and figure it out a bit more. I don't know, personally I don't find one any easier than the other. Yeah, I don't know. It's all just kind of personal preference and experience, really. A lot of my history with training comes from working with birds, so I find communicating with them is a lot easier because their body language and everything is very well ingrained in my head. Yoshi sometimes with certain bits of body language and ear positionings and the way her body stiffens, I find I have to take an extra second to kind of properly process what her body language is presenting. Whereas with the birds, it's, oh, they're doing this, that's exactly what it means. So I guess in that sense, I can find dogs a little bit more difficult because it's more a matter of me still figuring out the precise little details in her body language and figuring out exactly what stressors there are and how to resolve them and things like that. Alright, so that's going to about do it for this video. That is our full flock, zoo, sanctuary, whatever you want to call us, and everybody lives within it. So I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys don't mind the random not bird related video. And yeah, if you want to see more of these guys and other things, let me know and I'll do a bit more on them, or if you've got more questions about them or want a bit more clarification on things, yeah, feel free to let me know and I've got no problems trying to go from there. Do keep in mind though that a lot of my life experience does come more from training birds, so I do not plan on answering questions specifically pertaining to training cats or dogs, because although I am capable of doing it, I do not feel confident enough with my knowledge of all of their kind of genetic histories and backgrounds and behavioral tendencies to be able to say for certain that any advice I would be giving for those situations would be 100% solid. You should definitely go find someone a little bit more qualified with these species for that information. So that's gonna about do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know how you feel about things, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.